Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. December 20th, 2021 in Hillsborough, North Carolina. We're reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 30, Text 26. tat-padavim anvichancho grito bala vadva padair tu priktani vilokyarta samabruvan. Tai, by those various padai, footprints, tat, his, padavim, path, anvichanchyaha, tracing out, agrataha, forward, abalaha, the girls. Does anyone know what abala means literally? Bala means what? Strong. Abala means weak. Actually, I know a devotee whose name is Abala Devi Dasi. Vadvaha, of his special consort. That literally, the word originally is vadu. Does anyone know what vadu means? Someone said wife, yes. Padai, with the footprints. Supriktani, thoroughly intermingled. Vilokya, noticing. Artaha, distressed. Samabruvan, they spoke. BBT translation. The gopis began following Krishna's path as shown by his many footprints, right? Yesterday we had a whole verse about what's on Krishna's footprints. But when they saw that these prints were thoroughly intermingled with those of his dearmost consort, they became perturbed and spoke as follows. tat-padavim anvichancho grito balaha vadvaha padaisu priktani vilokyarta samabhuvan. The gopis began following Krishna's path as shown by his many footprints. But when they saw that these prints were thoroughly intermingled with those of his dearmost consort, they became perturbed and spoke as follows. So we're going to read a Sanatana Goswami's Tika. There's no BBT purport. So from Sanatana Goswami, they followed his path by the footprints marked with the symbols. So yesterday we had a nice meditation on all the symbols. Anybody remember what any of the symbols are? Elephant code. Water pot, lotus, umbrella, remember umbrella? Barley corn, swastikas. The repetition, tais, suggests that the footprints were scattered in many places or they were isolated footprints. Jiva Goswami says that in some places Krishna walked on grass, so there was no footprints. Thought though weak, abala, from separation and searching, they searched in front for his path, or they saw in front his footprints mixed with those of another gopi, vadvaha, or of someone who was like a daughter-in-law, since the prints were delicate because she appeared to be shy. So one reason it's called vadu, or wife, is that the prints were not so distinctive. So it looked like that was a shy new bride. Or this means Radha, who is famous in Gokula as Krishna's wife, since Yasoda had that desire and expressed it sometimes. So Radha is sometimes called Krishna's wife because Yasoda said, oh, I wish that Krishna would have married Radharani. Her name is not directly stated, but simply written as Vadu. Kapitena samyam yata krita punya madalasa padani yes chaitani ganatya pat ananunicha. Someone with great piety, pride, and lethargy arising from love has gone with him. Her footprints are deep and thin, from the Vishnu Purana. His prints were very mixed, supriktani, with hers, since her arm was on his shoulder. He had not left the others because of anger, hatred, or detachment, but to lead one of them away. So this is important because later when Krishna returns, the gopis say, why did you leave us? Are you ungrateful? You just don't care about us, or you hate us. So here Sanatana Goswami is saying he didn't leave them because of anger, because of hatred, or because of detachment, but to lead one among them away. She had been with them, but by some signal he left with her. His footprints appeared at a distance, and then after walking for some time, met with hers. They were pained, so the gopis looking for Krishna who found these footprints, they were pained because he had accepted one of them and given up the others. Or, though pained by separation, they spoke to each other while reflecting on the situation. So I really note how, especially both Sanatana Goswami and Jiva Goswami will give often more than one, sometimes 3 or 4 different ways of understanding a particular word in the verse. So here he's saying this trouble, artaha, that they're experiencing is either because, well, we're pained because he left us just to be with this gopi, or that we're just pained due to separation in general. And so I wanted to look specifically at this word artaha, or distress. Now, we know in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that there's 4 types of beginning devotees, neophyte devotees. Rupa Goswami explains in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. In the Eastern Ocean, he talks about the 4 neophyte devotees. They're all considered kanista adhikaris who come to Krishna. So who are those 4 types of pious beginners? People who are inquisitive, curious, in distress, wanting money or material opulence, and already Brahman realized. So these are our 4 categories of persons. And the distressed, of course, is exemplified. Rupa Goswami says the exemplar of one who comes to God in distress is Gajendra. So the exemplar of one who comes to Krishna looking for material opulence is Dhruva Maharaj. Inquisitive, the sages at Naimisharanya, and those who are already Brahman realized and want to go further are the 4 Kumaras. So Gajendra is the exemplar of someone who goes to Krishna in distress. And there's a saying that there are no atheists in foxholes. So you'll know what foxholes are. So we're not literally talking about holes made by a fox, but in wartime, the infantry, the foot soldiers, if they're fighting with other foot soldiers, they will dig holes in the ground. Sometimes they dig a trench where a lot of them will go in at once, or they may dig individual holes, and they go in this hole in the ground and they kind of peek out and try to shoot at the opposing party. So the foxhole is a kind of protection. Of course, it can't be absolute protection. Obviously, someone can throw a grenade or a bomb and blow them up in the foxhole, and you have to peek up out of the foxhole in order to shoot your own weapon. And as soon as you peek up out of the foxhole, you become very vulnerable. So somebody may be an atheist, but as soon as they're on the battlefield, then they're praying, "Dear Lord, please save me. Dear Lord, please save me." My father always told the story. His own parents ran a religious food company, but they were not actually themselves religious people. They put on a show of being religious so they could sell their products, so people would trust them. If you're going to be... It's just like, imagine somebody running a prasadam company who was an atheist, but, pretended to be a nice devotee so that people would buy, that we just talked yesterday and the day before on Yagyashish Tastino Santo, that offering food and sacrifice, and somebody was asking, does the quality of the person cooking and making the offering matter? Is it possible that someone could go through the motions and it not actually be prasadam? So imagine somebody running a prasadam company, a prasadam restaurant, but they actually didn't believe in Krishna. But in order to have customers among the devotees, they would make a show. So my grandfather, he passed away before I was born, but my parents told me he was like that. So he and his wife didn't actually believe in God. They weren't religious people. And like Jews on the Sabbath, they're not allowed to turn on any lights. So they had room darkening curtains in their house, and they would pull those curtains so they could turn the lights off and on, and their neighbors wouldn't know. So this was the kind of family my father was raised in. And when he was, I don't remember what age he was anymore, I think he was a teenager, he was riding in a bus, and the window was open, and he had his elbow resting out of the window. And another bus came by and hit him on the elbow and broke his elbow. So he was in the hospital for a long time, and he said that was when he started to believe in God, because he started to pray. You know, please God, take away the pain. Please God, hear me. So this is very typical, that when people are in distress, they turn to God. And my late god sister, Kalangana in the UK, who was famous for her incredible milk sweets, she and I were once taking a japa walk. We love to walk around there because Srila Prabhupada visited the manor often when he was physically present, and he used to walk in the area. So we would retrace Prabhupada's walk path. So we were taking a japa walk, and this one woman from where she was from, she came and asked us directions, and Kalangana said, well, we're walking that way. Why don't you walk with us, and we'll show you how to get to where you're going. So she's walking with us, and we're chanting japa. And at one point, Kalangana, much to my embarrassment, started trying to get this woman to chant Hare Krishna. I was just like, oh, stop that. It was really awkward. And the woman was saying, I'm doing fine right now in my life. Why should I pray? I don't have any reason to pray. If you can think of like adult children who only call their parents when they need money, right? They never bother calling their parents or going to visit, but if they're in trouble, then, hey, daddy, hey, mommy, can you help me out? So people are thinking like this. Why should I talk to God unless I'm in distress? This is very typical. And Prabhupada said that in order to go to God when you're in distress, you have to be pious, because an impious person, when they're in distress, they'll do something else. An impious person, when they're in distress, they'll take intoxication, or, you know, they'll just go to a psychiatrist or something. They won't, they'll say, you know, there's no God even in that depth. Whereas if someone has some piety, they will turn to God. But that distress, of course, is very me-centered, isn't it? You know, I'm using God. I'm saying, okay, you know, please be, as Prabhupada would say, my order supplier. I think we can think of it like, you know, a shop. And Prabhupada ran a pharmacy, and I'm sure he had order suppliers, places that he could order, you know, bottles and chemicals and equipment. So we have order suppliers, like we go online and we go to whatever, you know, Walmart or Amazon, and we place an order, and it comes in the mail. Or we go to a shop. So people think like that. I mean, why would I go to a shop unless I need something? Right? I have no reason. So why would you go to God? If you need something and you say, I need this, and I need this, and I need this, and I need this, and people think they're going to pay for it with their prayers, which always amuses me. Like if you went into a Walmart and you went to the cashier and you said, I don't have any money, but you're so good looking, and you're so kind, and you're so merciful. Please give me this TV for free. So people think like that with God, you know. Oh, God, you are great. You are merciful. You are powerful. Please give me money. Please give me an A on my exam. Please cure my Aunt Sally, and so forth. Of course, going to God when you're in distress is better than not going to God, and it may lead to a relationship of love. It's possible that if you start praying to Krishna when you want something, when you're in distress, you may start developing a relationship. All right, and then there's distress of the devotees. So this distress the gopis are feeling, which is motivating them to search for Krishna, and which is, I mean, otherwise they could say, okay, Krishna's left us, all right, we're going to go on with life. Right? Do people sometimes say that in ordinary relationships? You know, my boyfriend's left me, my girlfriend's left me, all right, well, I'm just letting them go and moving on. But the gopis were in great distress, but this was not like the distress of Gajendra. And this was not like the distress of my father on the bus or the distress of the soldiers in a foxhole. And this point is very difficult to understand. And Rupa Goswami devotes a whole section in the last wave of the Southern Ocean of the Nectar of Devotion, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, to talking about how this kind of distress, this karuna ras, this lamentation, is actually ecstasy, and it's not material. Because we might look at it and think like that. We might think, well, these are young girls, and their boyfriend has left, and so they're upset. And so they're looking for him like that, or they're ordinary materialistic, pious materialistic people who are going to God in distress. But that's not what's going on. So they could be going to him because they're abhala, they're weak. And again, this is not the weakness of the person in the foxhole or the weakness of an elephant being eaten by a crocodile, but a sense of loving dependence on the Lord. And they're feeling the Lord is satisfied with us. We give him happiness. But we're not able to give him that happiness right now. We're weak, we're insufficient. Without us, how will he be happy? Now, of course, material side of this would be like if we have some service we do at the temple, and for some reason we can't be there to do our service, and we're thinking, how will Krishna get nicely served without me there? What will happen? Now, materially, that can just be ego, and we can think, well, I'm the only one who could cook good burfi, or I'm the only one who can clean the temple room nicely, or something like that. But there is a spiritual side of this, because each of us has a very individual relationship with Krishna. There are 5 primary rasas, 7 secondary rasas, 33 changing vyavichari bhavs. But each devotee, each jiva, has a particular mix of these flavors. I give the example so many times. There's so many different kinds of ice cream. We have our ice cream place that has 33 flavors, another place 55 flavors, and I've been in Dubai where our ice cream has chiku ice cream and sitapal ice cream. And so with Krishna, there's unlimited flavors. Each of us jivas represents a particular flavor of rasa, and the gopis are feeling weak, that they can't offer their flavor to Krishna, that they don't have the strength to do that. They don't have the strength to find him. So imagine that someone you love very, very much is coming for dinner, and you're sick, and you can't get out of bed to make what they like. So it's this, they're feeling we're weak. We've been wandering in the forest. It's dark. It's the middle of the night. And we're just young girls. Now, I know this is not popular in 2021, but traditionally the women have been called the weaker sex, delicate. So there is a reality to that these, in this world, we're not actually women or actually men. We're just souls in these particular costumes this time around. But these are the real women. And they do have this kind of delicate nature to them. I mean, actually, of course, each of these gopis are powerful beyond measure. I mean, if a Brahma, who's generally still a conditioned jiva, can create a whole universe, imagine what one pure devotee can do. So they're not weak from our perspective. But this is their mood. Oh, we're just weak, delicate girls, and we're in distress that in our weakness we can't find Krishna. We can't offer him ourselves. And this is also some distress that Krishna's with his Vadhu. He's with his wife, and therefore he's only able to enjoy with her and not with the rest of us. Generally it says, like Krishnadas Kaviraj says, without many women there's no enjoyment of rasa. That Krishna has so many, unlimited gopis, each of whom have their own relationship with Krishna. And therefore, although Krishna also has relationships with each of these gopis individually, he likes to also enjoy with all of them together, that's what the Rasa dance is all about. And the Rasa dance is considered the pinnacle of understanding of the enjoyment of God and the pastimes of God. So our god brother Garuda Prabhu, who used to live here, he said when he was getting his PhD in theology, that he was trying to decide what to do his dissertation on, and the professor said to him, "What is the highest expression of your theology?" And he said, "Well, the Rasa dance." And they said, "You should do your dissertation on that." Which kind of, he was a little taken aback by that, but that is, of course, exactly what he did. And the painting we normally have in the temple room by Little Krishna Priya was on the cover of that book. That was the publishing of his dissertation. So this Ras Leela is the highest pinnacle of Krishna's enjoyment, and they're Krishna's with all of the gopis, all the different groups. Right? Rupa Goswami identifies that there's 4 different main groups. There's Radha's group, there's groups which are friendly to her, like Shamala, there's groups which are neutral, like Bhadra's group, and groups which are in opposition, like Chandravali's groups. But he says, he identifies 350 types of gopis, and he says, but actually there's unlimited types. So the gopis are also in distress because they're thinking Krishna's not with all of us. He likes to be with all of us. Yesterday we went to a house program at Sudevi's house. And there were how many preps were there at that program? So there was lasagna, there was samosas, there was tamarind chutney, it was a wet sabji, it was a dry sabji, there was salad, sambar, coconut chutney, ginger tea, and a cake. Did I get everything? That's like 10 preps. Right? So the gopis are thinking like that. Krishna wants all 10 preps. He wants all, 10 million preps. I mean, it's very interesting. Scientifically, we eat more when there's more variety of preps than if there's only one. Did you know that? I'm sure you've all noticed that we can eat something and then when the dessert comes out, we have room for it even though we're full. So the scientists speculate that that's because biologically we're more likely to be healthy if we eat a variety of food. We're more likely to get enough micronutrition if we eat a variety of food. So when there's a lot of preps, we feel that we can eat more. I mean, they've done studies with this. If there's just one thing, you feel satiated sooner. So the gopis are thinking like that. Krishna only has one prep. He's only gone with one gopi. How is he going to be happy? And so they're in distress like that. This is not... So in other words, both of these things, they're not personal. They're not, I'm in distress, and I want Krishna to come and relieve my distress as my order supplier, but I'm in distress because Krishna's not happy. I'm not able to please Krishna. All of the times that the devotees are wanting Krishna to come back from Vrindavan, like at Kurukshetra with the Rath Yatra, where they're trying to pull Krishna back to Vrindavan, or where they're lamenting that Krishna's in Mathura, it's not a material thing where they're thinking, Krishna's not here to satisfy my senses and my order and give me the ecstasy that I want. They're not thinking like that. They're thinking, Krishna enjoys the most when he's in Vrindavan. And therefore, I want to bring him back to Vrindavan so I can offer my service that is very pleasing to him. If you can think of it, like people go home this time of year, Thanksgiving, Christmas, they go home, and I'm sure a lot of adult children tell their mother, oh, Mom, there's nothing like your cooking. And the mother may be lamenting, oh, my child's far away from home, they're having to eat at restaurants, or they're having to cook for themselves, and I can't cook their favorite dishes for them. Or someone goes on a business trip, and the spouse is thinking, oh, I can't make home-cooked food for my spouse. They're having to eat things that are not nice. They're not able to sleep in their own bed. They're not able to get the facility that they want because they're away from home. So that's how these gopis are thinking, both in terms of, I'm weak and I can't serve Krishna, and, oh, Krishna's just with this one gopi. Now, there are also, as we're going, I don't want to steal the thunder from the upcoming verses, but just to say very briefly that there are, as I mentioned, different main groups of gopis, although each gopi has her individual relationship. And so those gopis that are in Radha's group, although they're also in distress because Krishna is away from them, as they notice that the leader of their group is the one who is with Krishna, they're very happy for that. So they're thinking, we're not all with Krishna, but at least he's with the leader of our group. And in fact, sometimes in the Leelas, when Krishna is with Radharani, her other friends will remove themselves. And they'll say, oh, we need to go pick some flowers over there, so Krishna can be alone with our group leader. But the gopis in other groups are feeling distressed that, well, Krishna is just with Radha and he's not with our group leader and he's not with our group. And again, that comes not from a materialistic ego, but from the sense that Krishna is not tasting the particular kind of rasa that our group can offer, because it is a different taste. Right? We talk about these two big categories, left-wing gopis and right-wing gopis. And Krishna likes both tastes. So if Krishna's only with one group, the gopis from the other groups will say, oh, he's not having a full menu. He's not enjoying everything. And of course, and this is again a very high esoteric level, but every devotee is thinking that what I offer to Krishna, he likes the best. No one's thinking, oh, Krishna likes better what someone else is offering and my offering is inferior. None of them feel like that. And it's interesting, Sanatana Goswami in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam talks about this with the cowherd boys, that each cowherd boy feels, I am Krishna's favorite. And they actually are. And the same thing among the cowherd boys or among the older gopas and gopis, or among the cows, or there are different moods. Everyone knows, if you've ever had an animal as a pet, that some animals are very shy and some animals are very outgoing and social and some animals are very demanding. Yes? I remember we used to sometimes take our children, when we were out shopping, we'd stop in pet shops when our children were very young. It's like a kind of mini zoo where they could be entertained for a few minutes on our shopping trip. And I remember in one of these pet shops, there was a booklet about hermit crabs. And I was reading this booklet, and it was saying, hermit crabs each have their own personality. That you will notice if you put an obstacle in the tank, some of them will simply stop and turn around the other way. Some of them will go over the obstacle. Some of them will go around the obstacle. And they have consistent personalities. So this is true ultimately as well. And in the spiritual realm, each devotee has their particular personality because it's the way that they want to express love for Krishna. In this world, I have a particular personality because of the different samskaras in previous lifetimes. That's why I have a particular body. That's why I have a particular personality. And it changes from lifetime to lifetime. I'm not going to exhibit exactly the same personality in each of my lifetimes. Just like I'm not going to exhibit the same kind of gross body in each of my lifetimes. But in our original spiritual form, that personality is not an exhibition of karma or samskaras, impressions. It's an exhibition of how I want to love Krishna. How I want to express my love for Krishna. And naturally, I feel that how I want to express my love for Krishna is the best way to express love for Krishna. Does this make sense to everybody? I'm thinking, how would Krishna be the most pleased? Oh, he would be the most pleased in this way. Therefore, I want to please him in that way. And that desire to please Krishna in a certain way results in it's manifested in a particular eternal spiritual form and mentality. So therefore, if I'm not with Krishna, I'm feeling he's not being served in the best possible way, because the way I serve him is the best possible way. Now, Srila Prabhupada always uses the word false ego, because there is a real ego. Krishna Priya mentioned briefly yesterday, mamata, Krishna is mine. You know, some of the devotees in Shantaras, they have no mamata. Not even Krishna is my Lord. Those in as servitude, Krishna is my Lord, Krishna is my master, or Krishna is my father. Those in friendship, Krishna is my friend. Those in parental, Krishna is my child or my student. And those in conjugal, Krishna is my husband, or Krishna is my beloved. Krishna is mine. Krishna belongs to me. Prabhupada said we can only get rid of possessiveness when we feel I possess Krishna. And I belong to him. And I know how to serve him in the way he's most pleased. Every devotee is thinking like that. And this is why separation is painful. So this is another reason the gopis are lamenting, as Sanatana Goswami says, due to separation. That in separation, I can't please Krishna in the way that he's most pleased, because nobody else can please him the way I can. And this is the original form of ego. Even though at the same time, the devotee's feeling, I am not the least, I'm not even the least. I'm the most insignificant. I am just a servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant. And putting these two things together is almost impossible for a materialistic mind. If I think Krishna really likes my service the best, then I must be the best and the most important. But the devotees are all thinking, even Srimati Radharani is thinking, I am the least. These two things are in juxtaposition, which again is inconceivable. Just like, again, Brihad Bhagavatamrita, before Gopal Kumar can enter into Vrindavan, he has to have absolute humility. He's in the spiritual world, in Dwarka, but he can't enter Vrindavan until he has absolute humility. And interestingly enough, Narada Muni and Uddhava are talking about this has to be coupled with distress, this spiritual distress. I'm separate from Krishna. This greed, this loyam. I want to satisfy Krishna this way, but I can't. I can't because I'm too weak. I can't because I'm separated from him geographically. And I can't because he's with somebody else. So these are the three ways in which these gopis are feeling artaha. I'm too weak. He's with somebody else. And I'm geographically separated. But I have to serve him with the way I can serve him, because only that will make him happy. I need to do this. Again, a material example is if I feel I need to get this there on time. Right? Like I take care of the tulsi leaves and manjaris for the deities. And I have some anxiety about this. Do we have enough leaves for the day? When are we going to run out? At which point in the day are we going to run out? Are we going to have enough for the noon offering, for the 4 o'clock offering? I need to get there. If I don't get there, it's not that nobody else is going to take care of it, and I have to do it. So there's this sort of anxiety. I have to be there for Krishna to offer my service. Now, what's ironic is that this very anxiety, this feeling of weakness, this feeling with thinking Krishna's just with this one gopi of transcendental jealousy even, or this sense of separation, is all, Rupa Goswami explains, a type of ecstasy. In fact, it's such a great ecstasy that Sanatana Goswami explains it dances on the heads of all other ecstasy. I mean, it's a very strange thing, this spiritual life. Because in the material world, if I want to offer you service, I have to physically offer you service. I can't just think about giving you money. I have to actually give you money. I can't think about giving you, an apple. I have to actually give you an apple. It's not worth anything otherwise. Years ago, 2 of my godbrothers were talking, and one of them said, well, my heart's at the temple program, and the other one said, why don't you bring the rest of your body? So it's like on the material platform, my father always used to say, the way to hell is paved with good intentions. Well, I want to chant my rounds. I want to follow the principles. I want to do some service. Okay, that's... Prabhupada says if you want to serve Krishna, in one sense, you're already liberated, even if you're not serving Krishna. And there's this wonderful purport in Bhagavad Gita 3:31, that even if you're not up to the standard, if you work without resentment and without criticizing the principle, eventually you'll become perfect. But on the spiritual platform, meditating on service in the mind, desiring to do service, can be the same as actually doing service. We have this one brahmachari, what was his name? Nikula brahmachari? I think was his name. Who mentally was making a path for the Lord. He was making a path for Lord Chaitanya out of jewels. What was his name? Do you remember? Yeah. He was Nakul, a brahmachari. And he got to Kanai Natashala, and he couldn't make the path anymore. And he said to the devotees, Mahaprabhu's not going to go past Kanai Natashala. Because he knew he couldn't make the path anymore. That Brahmin who would offer everything to the Lord in his mind. And then Lord Narayan was laughing and brought him to Vaikuntha. And there's a very famous story from South India about someone who made a temple for Lord Shiva in his mind. So there really isn't a weakness. That doesn't actually exist. We cannot be too weak, because even if we're in bed with a high fever and we can't get out of bed, mentally offering to Krishna, Krishna also accepts. That's not that we should be lazy and I have the capacity to do service and I just sit in bed and meditate on it. Well, I'm just going to sit and dream of doing service. But if we're actually weak, it's also accepted. And there's no such thing as geographical separation. How can there be geographical separation from Krishna? Isn't that possible? Like Krishna Maharaj said, it's one of his favorite Bhagavad Gita verses, which I hope we get to put up on the property, is 6:30. For those who see me everywhere and everything in me, I am never lost to them, nor are they ever lost to me. So how can you be geographically separate from Krishna? Maya-tatamidam sarvam jagadavyaktamurtinam. He's everywhere. So what happens when the devotee feels as if they're geographically separated from Krishna, or they feel that they're too weak, or they feel Krishna's only with somebody else, that feeling intensifies, ironically, their sense of being with Krishna and offering their service to Krishna. How interesting is that? The sense that I'm separated from Krishna and I can't offer my service because I'm weak or he's with someone else, that feeling is so overpowering that actually one feels more with Krishna than when one sees Krishna next to them. And one feels more, I'm offering my service to Krishna, than when one is literally offering one's service. So this distress of the gopis has to be understood in this amazing transcendental way of joyfulness, and not like a materially distressed person who's asking the Lord to satisfy their selfish desires. Thank you very much. Prabhupada ki jai.